What's next? A reduction in the amount of time that you can spend arrested without charge. In my view, 14 days, still too long, but let's agree it's better than 28 days. Let's never forget the last government wanted 90. Outrageous. But at least we've come down now to 14 days, and I think that is another significant win in the Freedom Bill. And finally, as far as Big Brother Watch is concerned, on the positive side of things, I think I would want to stress that the surveillance powers that can be used by local government officials, and I'm still, it still flabbergasts me whenever I give speeches like this, lots of people have no appreciation of the fact your local authorities can conduct covert surveillance. It's what you think it is. It's a man in the bushes with a telephoto lens or a pad of paper taking notes of your movements. It's not MI5, it's not the anti-terrorism organisations, not special branch. This is your local council official on steroids. This is your local council Jobsworth who thinks he's James Bond. It's being sent out into the field to try and crack down on what? On people leaving their bin out on the wrong night. On people who allegedly break the smoking ban. On people who let their dogs foul the pavement. On people famously in Poole who supposedly lie about the catchment area that they live in for school attendance purposes. Poole, a young mother called Jenny Patton, a good friend of Big Brother Watch, had a scandalous case whereby her and her family were watched for weeks because they were alleged to have lied about the school catchment area they lived in. As it turned out, they hadn't lied, they'd told the truth. But even if they had lied, do you think it is proportionate to maintain logs on your own residence which say, as in her case, Subject A, the mother, was watched at this time when she met with Subject B, the daughter, and they got in target vehicle Alpha, the Ford Mondeo, and they went to location 1, the school, and on those logs went for weeks. Now that sort of covert surveillance by local councils is now going to require a warrant. And quite right too, because up until today, up until when this bill finally gets passed, these local authorities, which are still using these powers by the way, 8,500 such operations in the last 2 years, they didn't require any external authorisation at all. Local Jobsworth A said to local Jobsworth B, shall we start watching Simon Richards? Local Jobsworth B says yes, that's the authorisation process done. So it's an all-round package in the Freedom Bill, I say, which should be welcomed, from DNA to CCTV is not in the bill, but in CCTV there's very good movement, to stop and search, which is excellent, to covert surveillance. And there's one more point that's worth considering. We at Big Brother Watch a year ago did an event about the rights of local authorities to enter private property. We identified some 28,000 bureaucrats up and down the country who've got more than 1,000 separate powers. Again, not the police, not MI5, local authority civil servants who've got the right to demand entry to your home without notice. So no warning. Come and enter your property. And some of these things you might think are unobjectionable if it's about health and safety for food hygiene purposes and you run a restaurant. But plenty of these things, as we are identified in the book by Harry Snook, a fellow barrister, are things like the Bees Act. If you keep bees, I can enter your property. Try that. I can force entry of your property to make sure your bees are safe. I don't even have to tell you in advance that I'm coming. And this isn't theoretical. It's used over 1,000 times a year in private properties up and down the country. You have the power as a civil servant to enter private property, including the home, to see if someone's hedges are too high. Enter the home to see if the hedges are too high. Now you can see how that happens. What happens is lots of fuss about ley landi in the relevant. You might remember it. I can't remember if it became before the panic about dangerous dogs or afterwards, but it was around that sort of time. Ley landi, blotting out our light. Lots of headlines. Let's do something about it. Let's pass a law. Let's let bureaucrats enter private property to do it. What if you can only get into the back garden through the house? Okay, then they can enter private property to go into the back garden. You can see the stages whereby the state creeps around your life, step after step after step. But when you get to these 1,000 powers, which are helpfully listed for you on our website, it's like ink blotting over a page, until in the end, they can enter anyone's property for something. They can enter anyone's premises to check whether your refrigerator's got the proper license for emissions, to check whether you've got a plant passport for a yucca plant. These are things genuinely you've got the right to enter private property within this country. In the end, they can enter anyone's home. And so I welcome that in the Freedom Bill too, limitations on the exercise of those powers. So, what's the bad side? What isn't in the bill that should be? There's nothing about body scanners, and we at Big Brother Watch have been campaigning about body scanners for a long time. What I'd not ever expected, because we oppose them, of course, on privacy grounds. We think this is if you've ever seen the images, they're very graphic. If you Google them, you can see what's being revealed. I had never expected the sort of groundswell of support, air swell, I suppose is the right term, from cabin crew and pilots. Who say, well, actually I've not got really many concerns on the privacy front. So as a matter of fact, cabin crew, I think I'm quite attractive and I don't mind who sees me like that. I'm concerned about the cancer risk. I'm concerned about the fact that you're estimating the exposure to radiation based on frequent flyers going through once or twice a week. I might go through at Schiphol 8 times a day. I'm doing in and out of the airport. I'm going on short-haul flights. I'm working long shifts. I'm going between terminals. You're going to scan me each time I come in and out. I might go through one of those scanners 8 times a day. And the answer from the authorities, remarkably, was, well, it's not as much radiation you get if you fly. Well, yes, but it's not instead of the flight, is it? It's as well as. So I saw a flaw in the logic there. We should all bear in mind the fact that this is not the end of this agenda. This is the beginning, in lots of ways, of this agenda. We should expect more of this government from Freedom, not less. We shouldn't think this is it completed and that's them done and now they can move on to the next thing. We ought aggressively to hold this government to the promises that both parties made in opposition, that they wanted to stand on a platform of freedom. Well, if that's the case, I accept this Freedom Bill as a starting point. I accept it as their opening bid. And I accept all of it. And I ask them, what's next?
What do you think of the current extradition review announced by the government, especially in relation to European arrest warrant? Are you hopeful? Are you skeptical? Is it taking too long for them to scrap this major threat to liberty?
Right. I'm reluctant to attack the inquiry into extradition proceedings, because maybe it will come out with as good recommendations. Whether or not they're enacted is another question, but it may come out with as good recommendations. Let me just say this about the European arrest warrant, which to my mind is disgraceful, is an anathema to British justice, where people are just sent, they're not even extradited, just sent because of the demands of a foreign power from this country to face something that may not even be a crime in this country, the Portuguese offence of criminal defamation. Or if whatever you think of Holocaust denial, which I abhor, that should be out in the public domain and we should have that argument and they should get beaten in the public space rather than being hauled off to Germany or Austria to face criminal charges as a result of something you said in the UK. I think the European arrest warrant is anathema, but we mustn't allow the debate to only be about the European arrest warrant, the EAW, because its partner, the European Investigation Order, the EIO, that's something that is even more pernicious, and it entitles foreign police, without sign-off from a British judge, to require our police to do their dirty work for them, to access our DNA database, the largest per capita in the world, as I've mentioned, more than a million innocent people on it, and ask for their samples. It entitles them to demand your bank records. Now those sorts of things, they tap your telephone, conduct covert surveillance on you. They make this absurd demand, British police wind up doing it. That could happen in this country, and does happen, without you being made the subject of a European arrest warrant. And so what we must make sure of is that the anathema though it is, the European arrest warrant, we must make sure that whatever solution arrives doesn't just apply to the EAW. It has to bind the EIO as well, because otherwise it will entitle foreign police to make demands of our police or come over themselves without any sort of warrant and conduct surveillance in the UK ad infinitum, as long as they don't ask for an arrest warrant. And in the end, if they do that enough against some people, they'll accrue enough evidence that they can ask for extradition along the traditional route. But that's not good enough, is it? So we've got to try and stop the EIO as well as the EAW.